building out a brewery. It was tough finding a location. That was a different story, but got our spot, got our equipment, got everything rocking and rolling. And yeah, it was me, Todd, and Brian just working a brewery.
What is your first move when you open a new brewery? Like, is your first move to just make beers that you already know how to make? Is it let's just make some base stuff and get the equipment going?
So there's definitely two ideas about that. We took the route of like, all right, we want 4 core beers that we can get in cans, because like cans aren't cheap. You got to buy in bulk, all that kind of stuff. So we want 4 cores, like a pale, IPA, porter, cream ale, which is like a light, almost like a lager. Mm-hmm. Those will be the ones that we push to the market, and then everything else will just kind of be one-offs for the tap room.
Okay.
That's kind of what we built our business plan around. I will say that we did make the mistake of not adjusting our business plan as things had changed while we were looking for a property, because people were starting to get away, like bars were getting away from buying like the IPA that you make every month to like, we want the new weird shit.
Got you.
And we had a larger system, so we were more built for production than like one-off craft stuff.
You.
I mean, it's definitely still craft. Mm-hmm, it's by no means like we weren't big at all.
Yeah.
And it was fine. I mean, our tap room was fantastic. We had 20 taps. So, like, we had those 4 regulars and then 1 rotating seasonal, and everything else we were doing on our pilot system, just pumping out different shit for people to try.
Yeah.
Weird laws in Texas. You need to... This has actually changed since then, but at the time, you could either be a brewery or a brew pub. 2 different licenses. Had nothing to do with food. Brewery just meant you could produce this many barrels. Yeah. Barrels being like a barrel is 31 gallons. So like this many barrels per year, and then you can self-distribute. I think it was like 10,000 at the time. A brew pub, you can produce less per year, but you're only allowed 1,000 of self-distribution. But at the time, you could sell beer on your premise. Okay. A brewery was just a production place. A brew pub, people could come, buy beer to go, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So starting out, we're like, we'll do the brew pub way, just so we can get people in here, do that kind of thing. Sign on with the distributor. This could be a whole nother fucking podcast about how that went. But they were falling apart. They didn't tell us. And it ended up boiling down to like us having meetings every week being like, why don't you have any employees? Like, you need sales reps, you need managers. Like, I'm getting calls from all these accounts because they're not getting their product. Then we got this cryptic-ass email one day when we were having beers, like, you have your rights back. And then went there the next day, they had chains on their door. They were fucking gone. See you later. With a bunch of our stainless, bunch of our product in there.
Where'd they go? Where'd they take it to?
They were a sister company of, it was Barrel House. Texas Barrel House was the distribution company that we worked with in Austin. Yeah. They were a sister company of, I can't remember their name, of a company in Dallas. So I think they just dissolved it and were like, see ya. But that definitely set us back. We were trying to fight out of that hole. And just got to the point where, I mean, I wanted to keep going because that's just how I am. But, I mean, I didn't have that much money in the game.
Capital.
Yeah. The other two did, and we voted, and we just decided to sell and kind of recoup what
you could.
Yeah,
gotcha. At that point, are you thinking about leaving Austin?
At that point, I'm in a horrible depression.
Okay. All right. So
yeah, I.
But it seems like your recovery was strong enough not to fall back into
for sure.
The drugs.
I mean, no, nothing like that. I mean, it's safe to say that like that's not even on my brain anymore.
Yeah.
It was just spend 5 years of your life trying to like get something going, and
it doesn't work out.
And I know everyone's saying like, "Oh, you're gonna fail. Like it's fine. Like you learn from it," and that's all true. Doesn't mean it doesn't suck.
Yeah,
I mean,
it sucks.
It
a
hurts.
Lot. Yeah.
It hurts. I mean,
your livelihood.
I had just started seeing Nicole, my girlfriend, around that time, and I remember one night at the bar, I was just like having some drinks, like Workhorse next to my house where I lived, and she came, met up with me, and she's like, "You doing all right?" I'm like, "I'm gonna go to Italy on a work-away project and crush grapes," and she's like, "What?"
Yeah.
like I don't know. There's programs so you can just live for free and like do work.
Yeah.
And she's like, "How about you just take a breath?"
Yeah, chill out. Chill out. You don't need to move to Italy.
Yeah, let's calm down for a
Bart
second.
Simpson shift.
Yeah.
Stopping grapes. Like, him and Millhouse over there.
Oh, fuck yes. But yeah, no, it was just a period of that, of just like, I was drinking a bunch and freaking out about like, all right, well,
what do I do?
What do I do now?
Yeah.
And it took me a minute to like cool down, and I was like, you have culinary experience, you have front of the house experience, like, just get a fucking job and like make some money for a second.
Yeah.
And just chill out.
Chill out, yeah.
And that's what I did. I took a job as a GM at this like bar, pizza kind of neighborhood spot where I lived, and then another bartending gig at like a beer bar. And I was just doing that, saving up money, and I really had no idea what I was going to do. The thought of opening up another brewery was not something that was in my brain. Mm-hmm. Even working at a brewery at the time, it was just kind of like,
you didn't want any part.
I didn't. Mm-hmm. It was tough. But Nicole got an offer to work. So she's been in like the pet world for a very long time.
Okay.
And she got an offer to be like an apprentice dog trainer out in Denver. And we both were kind of like, fucking dope. Like, let's do it. Like, if you want to do it, like, if it sounds good for you, let's go. I'm like, there's restaurants, there's breweries out there. Like, I'll be able to find something. Like, this is your move. Like, we'll figure it out. And then the offer just kind of got weirder and weirder as the time got closer. It was just kind of like, oh, yeah, well, this is what you make, but a lot of it goes to, like, the house you'll be staying at. And, like, that kind of weird shit.
Yeah.
And it just kind of got down to it where I asked her, I was like, this is something you want to do, I'm on board. If you don't want to, we can either stay, we can go we can do whatever the fuck we want.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
that's the beauty of the restaurant industry.
Yeah.
You can go anywhere.
We can go anywhere.
Yeah.
And so she decided not to take it, but we kind of were already geared up to go, and she had visited here before, and I was like, well, we can go to Asheville. Like, I mean, I know a bunch of people here. I've been here for a long time.
Yeah.
And luckily, like, she was freaking out because she worked for this company for a long time. She loved the boss and all that. She was scared of telling him, and he was like, oh, yeah, no, that's fine. I'll just have you work remotely. Mm-hmm. She's like, oh, what? Okay. So we can literally go anywhere.
Yeah.
Like, this is fucking great.
Dope.
But yeah, we came back out here, and I linked up with some friends over at Highwire Brewing Company, ran their like logistics side for a little bit until this position opened up to run the mixed culture program over at Burial, and here I am now.
How'd you hear about this?
Actually, my buddy over at Highwire told me. So I had left Highwire for a little bit during the pandemic and whatnot.
Yeah.
And my buddy who ran the mixed culture, like mixed fermentation program at Highwire, knew that this spot was going to be open up, told me to apply, and it's one of those things, like, I've been making beer for a long time. I had never run a mixed fermentation program, like, especially of this size.
Yeah.
But it was like, I'll throw it in and fucking dive head first and see what the fuck happens.
Yeah.
And
now, when you say mixed fermentation...
So I'm dealing with wild yeast, like Brettanomyces. I'm dealing with bacterias, like Lactobacillus, Pediococcus, that kind of stuff. All those, like, funky yeasts and bacteria that, like, makes a sour beer.
Yeah.
So it's mixed fermentation because... I mean, a lot of people call it, like, sour beer, which a lot of it is sour, but all mixed fermentation means is that you're using some sort of... Most of the time, sometimes it's 100% natural, but like using some sort of like lab created yeast that's like clean and fine, and then you're inoculating some other bugs and stuff, to kind of give that like funky barnyard sour acidic kind of feel. Mm-hmm. That's why I have my own building, because all this stuff is highly contagious.
Yeah.
So the clean stuff's all over there. I have my building here. We don't share parts. We don't do anything, because, like, if I bring this glass over there and, like, spill it on the ground, there's a potential that, like, it could infect a clean beer.
Gotcha.
So
it'll taste a little sour and then taste rancid more or less because they don't have the other stuff to...
Exactly. Yeah, and there's good bacteria, bad bacteria. But,
yeah.
I mean, it's just, it's fun shit over here. Like, I have a whole, at the other spot, I have a massive wooden vessel. They're called fooders. That's 100% naturally fermented by one of our peach trees.
Really?
Yeah. It's like, we just took a pan of Wort's just unfermented beer, WORT, and just, like, took a pan, put it under the tree for a night, dumped it in, see what happens.
And it worked.
Sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
But, like, you get that yeast, you get that bacteria living on peaches on a peach tree. Like, it's nuts. Like, that beer tastes like a peach tree. Like, it tastes like an orchard. Like, it's wonderful.
Wild.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah.
Literally, it's a wild program.
So, buying product to make beer.
Yeah.
Is that challenging, and do they ever run out of shit? Because I know during COVID we ran out of yeast for bread.
Yep.
So how does that work for you?
It can be challenging. People definitely... It's just like any other... And I hate saying this, especially now, but it's like any other supply chain problems. But, especially... I'm just going to talk about my side of things.
Yeah, for sure.
We try to do as much local as possible. Beer is 4 ingredients. It's water, malt, hops, and yeast. That's the 4 things you need to make a beer. Mm-hmm. Water's available. We treat it through filtration systems, and then we add some salts back without getting too far into it. Like, calcium's going to give a little more, take out more sweetness of malt. Sulfate's going to give a little more bitterness from hops, things like that.
Okay.
So we treat the water there. Getting grain in, we have large produce. Germany's a huge producer. The U.S., Canada, they're all huge producers of grain, especially malted barley, which is the process of taking the grain, starting to germinate it, kind of like faking it out, and then stopping that process, because once those kernels start to germinate, they're getting all those sugars active. They're like, we're about to fucking go to town.
Yeah.
And so we halted there, because all we're doing with that malted barley is extracting that sugar for the yeast to eat. Mm-hmm. So there's base malts, which are usually in abundance. There's a lot of craft malting places. We have Riverbend here in Asheville. We have Epiphany in Raleigh. They do craft malts, which we work with a lot here. They do some bases. They do some specialty malts, which are going to be like caramel malts and chocolates and things like that to give you porters or stouts or different color IPAs or brown ales. So a lot of that's coming from those regions. Hops grow between, I always forget the numbers, but there's a northern latitude and a southern latitude, and it's where Washington, Oregon, Michigan all fall in the states, that kind of area there. And then in the south it's New Zealand, Australia, and then in Europe it's Germany, that kind of shit.
Gotcha.
So that's where hops will grow anywhere. They grow off a rhizome.
But there's optimal growing region.
Yeah, it's how much is going to flower. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It is a cousin of marijuana. Mm-hmm. So it's different in the sense that they grow off a rhizome.
It likes to fuck.
They love fucking. They love fucking, they love growing, and they do grow like a weed, but it's just how much it's going to flower.
Gotcha.
So that's where our hops are coming from, and it's like any other crop. If they have a bad year on Citra, there's hundreds of varieties of hops, and all those different variations make different beers. The whole thing about making beer is balancing sweetness against bitterness. Like, do you want an IPA, you want it to be bitter, you still need some sweetness so it doesn't taste like you're licking a piece of chalk.
Yeah.
And same deal with the stout. Like, you don't want to feel like you're drinking syrup. That's where that bitterness comes in. So,
gotcha.
like, there's a lot of different oils in hops that balance things out. There's a lot of different stats about malt. So it's just a huge balancing act for what you want.
Yeah.
And then yeast, 10 years ago, not even, like 5-6 years ago, you had 2 companies that were making yeast for brewery production. It was White Labs and Yeast, and now you have all these other smaller labs popping up making great products.
Okay.
There's a lot to choose from.
Yeah.
But that, like I said, that doesn't mean that you can't get shit sometimes. Like, I mean, we just got back from hop selection here. We went out to Yakima Valley, and we're in the fields